I've always dreamt and had a vivid imagination from a child. From the age of around 30, the dreams and visions started to seem a lot more real and lucid. The dream realm has been touched upon by many theories and thoughts around sleep. Rudolf Steiner, Gurdjieff, Carl Jung, Robert Wagner, and Robert Monroe, just to name a few. Dreams are a combination of your thought process, emotional and inner mental state, and what you have for dinner. Some dreams seem to imitate problems you face in life, even successes. Others seem to show past or current events, maybe traumas and worries. Others show events that have nothing to do with us. They have a special edge to them and seem special. Dreams, some seem real, some don't. Some we remember, some we don't. I won't go into why we remember some and why we don't remember others, although I could. But the key here is that dreams can be meaningful or non-meaningful. And just because some aren't meaningful or mostly are not, it doesn't mean that they're all that way. People have different names, but a vision or dream of the future or past that is true whilst dreaming and meditating could be called grace or a gift. And just because you haven't received this grace or gift as yet, it doesn't mean that it isn't real. And also doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong not to receive it. People that do aren't necessarily prophets or special in any way, although some may be. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. But from my non-dual days, the three states were important to see the true you, and the three states being the waking state, the here and now, the dream state where dreams happen, and the sleeping state in which you rest. And in each of these states, the only thing that is always present is you, the essence. Your personality is present in the waking, but not so much in dreaming, and not at all in sleeping. But what remains is the force or energy you are. How do you even know you've had a good night's sleep? Because there's no visual for you to see. You are always present, the true you. Sleep is a state of non-action. All four forms have ceased, but the dream realm is a unique one, the closest thing we have to death while being alive. Every night when we sleep, we touch upon death, its cousin, sleep, or S-leap, to signify a leap into the unknown, similar to when passing. The dream realm seems to have links, or is the same as the astral realm, which is visited mainly by the intake of substances, such as mushrooms and DMT. These can lead to the same, if not similar places as sleep. There seems to be a number of ways to the dream or astral realm, sleep only being one, meditation being another. In this video, which I will break into 3 parts, I will explain my experiences, dreams and visions of finding fortune. In part 1, will include 2 dreams I've had relating to a mass event which may or may not take place, but relates to the Bible, in particular Revelations. In part 2, I will discuss the White Room and Advanced Intelligence, and in part 3 will be discussed my visit to heaven and hell, which I visited and fought with my inner demons and saw angels, which I now believe to be a Kundalini rising. I will speak from many perspectives, as I remember it, but also comment and narrate from the present to give more detail where possible. Part 1. Visions of End Times. 2021. Day turns to night, the sky falls down. It seemed a normal day. I was in my house, standing in my living room with my family. I remember the sun shining brightly like a summer's day. In particular, I remember my uncle, because later, which I'll explain. I went outside my front door and the sky started to change. The bright light of the day quickly changed, became darkened. It looked like something was falling onto the earth from the sky. Describe it as the sky falling down as it looked this way. It seemed like waters were above in the sky and were falling through the sky towards the earth. However, no water did fall. It just looked that way as the sky moved. The light receded and it became more darkened, and everyone was scared. I can't remember how long it was out for, or how long it was dark, but I remember the light coming back. And when it did, there were golden lights in the sky, surrounding the sky in a circle-like shape. They could be seen by other people, maybe as UFOs or even angels that were surrounding the sky. At this point, being outside, I remember my uncle falling to the floor on his knees, looking towards the sky in dismay, shock, sorrow. Adults looking like they were asking for forgiveness, and their misunderstandings were revealed. The children, on the other hand, were joyful, jumping on cars and dancing in the street. The key points I took from this vision were the sky turning to night, the water seemingly falling from the sky, the golden lights that surrounded the earth afterwards, and including the children and adults' reactions. The sky turning to night, the sky falling down, and the lights are all described in Revelations in the Bible as end times. When I searched the things that happened in my dream on the internet, all this came up. In relation to the children being happy and the adults being scared or regretful, I feel this is because the children are the innocence of the world, whereas us adults aren't. We are corrupted. It will be us that have to answer to an higher power, be judged, if and when that day does come. Second vision, my most recent vision, 2022. The smoky-eyed monster zapping. Earlier this year I had what felt like a follow-up dream to the sky falling down. It might be the time period in my other dream between the sun going down and when it comes back on, but I'm not sure. The reason I say this is because when the dream started the sky was already dark, or was night, and I was in my home again. But it was dark now instead of being light, and a huge storm seemed to be in the sky, much more violent than the first sky. This one had a thick black cloud of smoke filling the sky with black and grey. It had what seemed like eyes, and spirals of smoke that came down from the large mass, shaping into cones with the tip facing us. It seemed to have many eyes, but for me, although they looked like eyes, they were not. It makes me think of the Bible and stories of the past about eyes, like Ezekiel's wheels and thousands of eyes. I may be thinking it wasn't quite eyes, but the closest example they could give. Anyway, it wasn't nice in any shape or form, and it was a horribly scary event. Plasma or lightning seemed to come from the sky and strike people, zap them into dust or ash. And this reminded me of ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It came from dust, and this is what we shall return to. Obviously I know the meaning of this in regards to life and death, but does it hold more of a meaning? This dream, I highlighted the dark sky, the smoke which had eyes, and the plasma that was charging down and hitting people. It was almost a War of the Worlds type scene. This seemingly coming a year after my other end time video and vision. In light of all the videos out there at the moment on plasma and end times, I thought I should include this as part 1. Today I will be considered a madman for this type of vision, but before I may have been called a visionary, a dreamer or a prophet. The vision I had, especially the first of the sky changing, has been had many times before by many different people. Some acclaimed, some killed, and some unheard. Because you have this vision now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen now. A vision could be seeing something which is to come or something that has come. And when it will come is very hard to know. As I often spoke before, the only thing you can do is save your soul and be ready to die at any moment. And that means cherishing life and living for now, living in the moment and being ready at every moment. It could be tomorrow or it could be in 100 years. And it's the same as your actual lifespan. You could get hit by a car tomorrow. Whenever this event does arise, whether in 1,000 years or next year, we must be ready internally. Part 2. The White Room. I entered a room while I awoke in a room, and the room was the purest of white, the whitest room I have ever seen. No items in the room, just a plain, clean, white room. In the room with me was a being. This being was the purest of white also. I couldn't see his face or any features. It was like he had none. I remember thinking, he looks just like the Power Rangers boss in that glass tube, as it seemed to be made of light. I did not fear this being. The energy felt fine. I knew he wasn't here to hurt me. Surprised and excited to find myself in this room, I maintained my composure. Many times in the past when I've had lucid dreams and then got too excited, I woke myself up. Next, I remember hearing the being speak to me, but he didn't speak with any words. I didn't hear any words, but I understood fully what he was saying to me. He was communicating with me telepathically, and this felt strange because Being used to communicating via language, there is a pause whilst you process what has been said before responding. This felt as I instantly knew what he was saying, and not only that, the emotion and the energy attached to that as well, instantly. It's like the communication comes directly to your brain or even heart, to you directly, and you know what it fully is, the full meaning, the full understanding, no confusion or misinterpretation. There's no room for error, as this cannot happen. This is one of the most beautiful things I have taken from this experience. The fact that there are beings, or there have been beings in the past that communicate telepathically, and in doing so, it becomes the universal language of non-language. For why would we need language if we were telepathic? And for me, most of the reasons behind wars and conflicts on the earth are misunderstandings, often through language. Anyway, what did he say? He showed me, rather than telling me, the makeup of our realm. Our realm, and not only that, the existence of everything and what exists within that. With his hands, which I can't tell you if he had fingers or not, it was too light, too bright, he stretched out an electromagnetic map. On this map, it looked like pixels or energy moving, but the map was alive. He showed me I exist within this. But the map isn't a map how you think. It was ultimately blank to me. It didn't have any lands or seas. It was creating more of a frequency or a wave in a square form within a map. Like I said, the map seemed alive, interactive. He then pulled this map and stretched it to show me how big it was, and it is huge, endless, boundless reality, which in some sense did seem to have an end, but the end wasn't clear or known. There may have been one, there may have not been one. Then from stretching it horizontally, he stretched it vertically, and in doing so, he split this one map, as I call it, into many. I can't tell you the exact amount and the layers he split it into. It was maybe 6, it could have been 7, it could have even been 9. 9 electromagnetic maps contained within one, which exists separate but together, coexisting. Since this, researching into movies, etc., I've recently found out that film contains 9 layers, which relates to most things including the 9 realms, so it was most likely the 9 realms which were split from the one. He explained this to be our realms which sit upon one another, only we can't interact or see them in our current state. He explained although there are many realms, they all exist within one. At this stage I started to get excited because I was meditating and conscious of being both there with this being but also sitting on my bed with my girlfriend sat next to me. I felt the urge to tell her what had happened, so I broke the connection to wait for my meditation to tell my girlfriend, which was a big mistake. I did tell my girlfriend what was happening, but when I went to return I was locked out, I couldn't get back in there. Whether this was because I simply broke the connection and I couldn't find it again, or something more, such as I shouldn't have told my girlfriend what I was seeing, I don't know the scenario. Now before I continue, what was the white being? Well, it wasn't God, and it didn't seem like a lower God with a lower G. Some may say an extraterrestrial, an alien, but for me they were a lot like the white being men in Westworld, who we have only just been shown in the show. And remember, I had my vision back in 2015, I believe this one was. I had no previous programming of these men in white suits or white skin. But as you can see in Westworld, the beings were almost moderators or controllers of reality, generally outside of the space-time continuum. However, I can't speak for all of these beings, but this one I encountered wasn't harmful and actually wanted to help me. Whether he was a rebel against his kind and went against the grain to help me, or all these beings are good, I cannot tell you, as I've only interacted with one. And people will have theories, etc., which is fine, but unless you have experienced it, you really don't know. That's why I don't state anything I haven't experienced. Weeks, maybe months later, I meditated again, and I believe I returned to that same room, if not a very similar room. But there was a major difference. The first time, I was free, in no container or locked up in any way, within the white room. But the second time, I found myself in a tight space, in which there was a small window or opening directly in front of me. It was like being in a coffin or deprivation chamber or even a jail cell with just a small gap in front of you, like prison doors just have that small gap to peek through or to put lunch through. While I was in this chamber, it felt like I was strapped to the bed, almost like one of those insane asylum beds where they strap you down but you're standing up. This window in front of me this time felt completely different emotionally too. It did feel like I was trapped and I was being monitored. I couldn't see the white room, but I presumed that was on the other side of the window somewhere, as it had kind of a white glare towards the background, if not a greyish look. It just felt like I was near that place. The window was blocked by a small shutter. Looking at this shutter, it opened and a pair of eyes were looking directly at me. The eyes seemed to be humanish. Comparing to the white being in the white room, they seemed different, because the white being to me didn't have any eyes. Those beings or person operating in this new room did. It or they was staring at me in an unsettling way before slamming the shutter back closed. I then came out of this vision, probably due to not wanting to be there. Looking back, maybe pushing further to try and find what it was or where I was would have been a better option. But when faced with new things, it can be hard not to be fearful or scared in some sense, no matter how strong you are. But I like to think if I went back today in my current state, as this was over 8 years ago, I would have the strength to hold on and find out. Another scenario which I'll include in this section, but doesn't necessarily have anything to do with extraterrestrials or white beings or being outside the space continuum, but might have something to do with the finer details and maybe alchemy and things like that. I encountered what I believed to be a master, but it was just an arm. The arm, I presume, was the arm of a high-ranking Freemason or master. It appeared out of nothingness, out of darkness. Now I say Freemason, but I'm not sure. The only reason I say this is because he had a robe on, so he could be a wizard, a mage, any kind of being or role that includes a very luxurious robe. And it was similar to robes worn by, say, very high-ranking Freemasons or wizard or royalty. The gown or robe was royal blue and had gold thread going through it with symbols and signs running around the wrist of the robe towards the elbow and around the wrist. The arm, which was being propped up like its elbow was resting on a ledge, the arm creating a V shape, and in the hand of the arm I remember it being quite tanned, wasn't quite white, wasn't black, it was a tanned hand, held a bunch of keys. How many keys I don't know, but there seemed to be one prominent key which looked important. The arm handed me this bunch of keys, but as I went to put my arm out, there didn't seem to be an arm, and I couldn't grasp the keys at the time, and they fell. They fell into darkness like the keys were being dropped into an ocean, and I followed them down attempting to grab them, but I had no hand to grab them. Keys disappeared into the darkness. This vision was around the time of the other visions, and was for me a setback at the time, as I had been reading the writing of Samuel Onward, who was stating you have to create a body to travel. You have to create a soul in a sense. He states, the little spark that we have needs to be cared for and nurtured and turned into a great light. He spoke about forming a body out of light to travel into realms, and now thinking of this at the time made me think of his writings and made me think I didn't have the body yet. I obviously had the capacity to travel, but I must have been like a ghost rather than something physical in terms of not having a body to reach out and actually interact. And this begs the question in relation to ghosts who may be able to see us and interact with us in ways but have no body or physical form like I didn't when travelling into the astral to do anything more. With this said, creation of a light body has to be one of the hardest things to achieve. And once this has been done, travelling around dimensions and realms are possible. In our realm, we don't see much of this, but what we do see, which may be the same, is UFOs or unexplained activities. The body of light or the macabre may look like a UFO of sorts when formulated. So the flying objects of the sky are basically doing the same thing I was when I visited these realms, only they have a body of light which can be seen physically, interacted with physically. As I said, the Master could sense me, but more as a ghost or an entity, something like that. To conclude, I feel it's possible to travel to other realms or dimensions within our existence. And on the same token, it's possible for other beings from those locations to travel and visit us, but only via the right means. It seems to be very clear and doable, mentally and on an astral level, but not so much physically. And I always say, everything spiritually has a physical counterpart, or everything physical has a spiritual counterpart. So in terms of these places which can be visited, in some senses should have an outer form also. There are many sightings of UFOs, but more paranormal activity, and with everything I've said, you should be able to see why. Simply because it's easier to travel mentally across realms than it is physically. More easy to master the mental projection than it is the physical one. Or for the realms to interact with each other in a spiritual or mental sense rather than a physical sense. The masters of the latter be people and ascended masters and stories that we hear, such as Jesus, El Muya, Buddha, Saint Germain. As Jesus was said to be able to shift his body in and out of the astral, essentially disappearing and reappearing at will. End of part 2. Part 3, Heaven and Hell. Before I start, I've read a lot of alchemy and Gnostic texts, which all talk about an inner journey, which is often showed in movies, where people, go through caves or into the inner earth to find treasures and have to fight a great monster before they do. And ultimately that's the aim of the story, and the Gnostic stories and the inner journey of man seem to follow the same suit. There's a deep treasure within us and it's locked away. We must find that. We have to go internally to do that. It's normally guarded by beasts, monsters or dragons, but once conquered, it's accessible. There's also talk of Culloden rising, and the story I'm about to tell, in reflection of it, does remind me a little bit of the Culloden rising, and I wonder if it happened but in a visual sense more so than a physical sense. As I went from the bottom to the top, I rose from the hell realm to the heaven realm, which could be seen as rising from the bottom chakra to the top in a very fast manner. Anyway, I was meditating and I found myself in a dark, vast place, so broad and gruesome. It felt like a huge valley, but also it felt like we were in the interior, the guts or the abdominal of a large monster or beast, as it seemed to be bloody and dark and filled with rock, material matter. All decaying matter of the material realm seems to end up here, but not just the material and physical elements, also the spiritual or emotional and mental elements also end here. So I found myself in this vast valley, this darkness, which to me felt like a hell-like realm. Finding out that this was deep within inside of myself, I had gone within the deep pit of my own self, and there were some creatures, some monsters, hellhounds. There were 2 or 3 of them, large and black with red, fiery eyes, evil and savage, like an animal that had rabies. They seemed to be caged, but broke free of their cages and lunged at me. I was scared and fearful at this point. But then something changed inside of me and I gained a great strength. Something told me I could beat these creatures. And these creatures were actually my own inner demons, my own anger and my own emotions, which has been suppressed and turned into these monsters. A sword manifested in my hand and I started to slay the monsters as they were lunging at me with their large claws and fangs, slaying them one by one. As I was slaying them, more seemed to appear. It didn't seem to be working. Knowing I was in a realm within myself where I could manifest anything, I manifested what I know to be one of the most destructive forces on the earth at the moment, which is a nuke. So I nuked these demonic forces, and by doing that, it killed them, but then lifted me out of this valley, which at the time I could see light peering through the top of the valley, trying to get through but unable to anyway. but this nuke broke almost the dome or the shell of this valley, and I rose at the same time on the nuke cloud above to a golden paradise with golden clouds. I sat where the sun would be for a while before it felt like I entered a realm where these golden clouds were being occupied with beings sitting on the clouds, draped, some in robes, but half naked, their private genital parts covered with leaves and such things, with kind of Greek head rests or bands across the top of their heads like leaves. Beautiful beings smiling on beautiful golden clouds, just basically laying there. It seemed almost they were having, in some senses it seemed sexual, but it's hard to understand. Sex on our level is completely different there, but it was a Garden of Eden type place where there was a lot of love, and on our level it would kind of be seen as an orgy, but it wasn't. It was almost a godly version of an orgy, which sounds completely ridiculous, but that's where I think the orgies are kind of coming from. It's a demonic or sinful version of something more beautiful. Well, anyway, this heaven realm is almost spiral in its formation, with the clouds almost going around a more golden central point in the middle. And then I exited it. But for me, it felt like a rise from the bottom to the top, and after exiting that, it felt like I had this great connection with a source or something high within myself. Later reflections have given me the observations I've now got in terms of maybe a Culloden rising of the explosion from the bottom to the top, seen with fire again, but more so in a spiritual or mental sense than more physical. This could be argued. And also, in reflection, I don't believe I destroyed my inner demons. As we see from the horror films, which are also in these dark, low places, so I feel like I slayed my inner demons for a while for them to grow back. It's like Freddy Krueger, he always comes back. In hindsight and reflection, all energy is recyclable and comes back, so ultimately all you're doing with the weed is chopping the top off of the weed to regrow. We need to deal with the root, and the root of this aspect would be dealing with the problem in a more fuller way, and that would be taming the animals and turning them on your side to use them at your will, which in some senses, I have been able to do, because I can turn that power and that force on whenever I want. I'm calm in a lot of my speaks and my talk because I fall back, but that switch, that button to be able to speak and gain great power and determination at one point, which is ultimately a dragon within inside myself, is achievable. And you see in alchemy, a lot of them against the dragons ultimately until the end, when they're riding the dragon or controlling the dragon, which would be these forces within inside yourself which you have faced, slayed or tamed. Slaying is one route, but for me taming would be better. Either or, that was my experience of the heaven and hell realm, which I believe to be within inside man, both heaven and hell. It depends where you lie and whether you want to go down and fight these demons and tame them to be able to rise to a higher place. But these demons must be dealt with for you to be able to rise to that higher place.
What happens when the dreamer forgets they are in a dream? The bizarre thing about dreams, or even a lucid vision, is the environment, the surroundings, the people, the objects, absolutely everything is a manifestation of mind. They are but thought forms interacting with each other, mostly unaware they are thought forms. In a dream, attempt to tell a dream character they are in a dream and they won't accept it. Everything and every person is essentially you. A version of you, different, but at the base the same. Dreams and thoughts are mind, and mind activity is essentially electromagnetic energy, which makes it similar to a simulation or computer theory. Everything is made out of this energy, but it's seemingly separate. The nature of dream is illusion. A dream is very similar to our current reality, if not the same. But due to not coming out of this reality until so-called death, it isn't seen that way. Like a cell in the body, unable to know he's in a body, but being able to experience from within, never being able to observe from outside and see the body, see the God, see us. I say life's like a movie, like a simulation, like a dream, but what am I actually saying? I attempt to show you an aspect of the true nature of reality, and that aspect being the oneness, and also the source of that oneness, explained using parallels, analogies and philosophy. For me, someone saying we're in a simulation, someone saying we're in a dream, someone saying we're within God, or any of these types of metaphors and analogies, I see the same, not the differences but the similarities. For we are all trying to explain the unknowable, the unexplainable. Yes, it can be experienced, like me who has experienced the oneness, all as me, but experience is different to knowing. We are within God, within ourselves. I know that, but never being able to step outside of ourselves in terms of existence, not the body, to know exactly what we are or what we are in, whether that is a literal body, a machine, a brain, a dream, or nothingness. As I've said, the nature of our reality is similar to a dream, and with that said, a dream is illusion, so reality is an illusion and is called Maya. Maya, also known as the serpent. The traits of Maya, desire, anger, greed, attachment and ego, enables the 5 vices and makes a person think the physical world is real. Maya is referred to the grand illusion of materialism. Money and wealth is also called Maya. From this Maya, all other evils are born, but by understanding the nature of Maya, a person begins to approach spirituality. Guru Nanak Dev states that Maya was created by God when he created the universe. But why did he create it? Only he knows. Maya creates the sense of duality. And I find when people find this Maya, they call this the trap. For it's scary for the ego to think, why has this been done? Without asking, who am I? And wonder, if it is all but a simulation or dream, what's the point in anything? Well, this is the attitude of the peoples who run the world, the elites. As they found out the truth of reality, they chose dark over light and decided, thou shalt do what they will. But this is another video. I feel due to my previous commitment to the heart and particular teachings, when this came to me I only saw it in a positive light, more a game than a trap, game of hide and seek. Also I feel the ego plays a huge role in what happens after seeing this. I remember seeing this YouTube video of a guy that stole an aeroplane and was talking like he was on GTA, and then crashed the plane. Luckily the plane had no passengers.
Contact with somebody.
I just kind of want to do a couple maneuvers, see what it can do before I put her down, you know?
See all the terrain around you, you've got no issue with visibility or anything?
Nah, everything's peachy clean. Just did a little circle around Rainier. It's beautiful. I think I got some gas to go check out the Olympics.
Just flying the plane around, you seem comfortable with that?
Oh, hell yeah, it's a blast, man. I played video games before, so I know what I'm doing a little bit. Start it up and get it to go. A couple hours, I guess. But, yeah, I wouldn't know how to land it. I wasn't really planning on landing it.
You can see the consequences of what can happen when one realises that reality is not what it's deemed to be. To be able to take this and live with it right, to do good, is the way of the warrior, the way of the Hopi, many names. But this power when found can give you strength over everything in this realm. No event, person or creature you will fear, as they are all part of this. And when seen, the illusion or Maya, control is taken back. No longer will you be a slave to the world and its illusion. It's up to you whether you be a hero or a villain. The 5 trees of paradise spoke about in the Gospel of Thomas, which I should do a later video breaking down. The senses, when controlled, even for a second, make what I'm speaking about possible to experience as one. What cities come with that, and what knowledge is dependable. But what we should hope for is peace. For without the 5 senses or the windows to the world, nothing is happening. And that nothingness, that is full and blissful, is you, residing unchanged, untouched. You being the whole of this thing experienced as one aspect, dreaming within a dream, like a Russian doll inside a Russian doll. But how far does it go? Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. Reality is a deep, mind-boggling thing, but below the surface is a power that makes all possible. And if you can find that power, you have found yourself. Thinking this through with the mind will only make it twist and hurt. It's not for the mind, it's for the heart. We are the dreamer and the dream, the character and the book, the script and the movie, the seen and the unseen. I am the Father and the Father is me. From the fractals down to the fractals above, all is thee.